The Euroviral contagion is spreading, and this is becoming particularly evident in Greece right now as the crisis continues to unfold. So today we will discuss exactly how Germany is intimately connected with what is occurring in Greece and why. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I want to show you this today, and this jam-packed episode is going to show you where it is all heading. Let's begin with this here, looking at the infographic at the bottom as it corresponds to the quotes above. 25 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the world again faces the risk of major conflict between states, and that's according to the World Economic Forum. You may know them as Davos. Today, the means to wage such conflict, whether through cyber attack, competition for resources, or sanctions, and the other economic tools, is broader than ever. There are many different reasons why this could end badly, and it isn't always just on the financial realm. We have seen many other crises take place, and we can see this all going on right now in Europe in particular. At the bottom, you see the interstate conflict in the top left corner there. Interstate conflict being the highest of the geopolitical risks. Very important to note. Let's move on to this out of Bloomberg, where we're looking at the situation with Greece in particular. Greek banks owners with assets in the Republic of Macedonia can't pull out their capital unless they offer their holdings for sale. This is very important to look at because the nations that surround Greece are the most affected by it. Greek banks have no legal possibility to withdraw their funding capital according to banking legislation. They can only sell their stake to another investor. Well, what's happening right now is that they're not able to sell anything other than to those who are basically using this as part of a grand scheme. We see Germany really doesn't want to have anything to do with this. They're simply bailing out the EU. That's the way I see it anyway. Let's move on to this here, out of Reuters. If we have a sustainable solution, regardless of how difficult the compromise is, we will bear the burden because the only criteria are exiting the crisis and the bailouts. And what we have here is a situation that they are basically saying, we are only going to do this one way. There are no other options for us. And this happens as they move closer and closer to their payouts on their debts, where they are forced to make the payments, but they seem to be defiant. Tsipras used the term, quote, sustainable solution to refer to a long-standing demand for large parts of Greece's mountainous debts to be written off, something he believes is vital if the Greek economy is to start getting back on its feet after a 5-year depression. Very serious to note here, and what we're seeing is the factions forming. We have Greece, which is becoming extremely defiant, and then we have the other nations like Germany, which are there to bail out Greece simply because they want the EU to continue this because they want maximum control. What's happening here is definitely a multi-level process, not something that can be explained in a very simple video here. But let's move on to this as we look for the German finance minister asking his staff to conceive a mechanism by which a euro area state in the future could default on its debt in an orderly way that would ensure the continuity of the current union. They fear what is happening right now with Greece as well as other nations, that they have considerable amount of debts and they are unable to pay them back. So will they allow a write-off of that debt? Well, this really sets up a moral hazard for countries to just continue racking up the debt and encourage this. Speculation on a Greek exit from the euro area is exceptionally dangerous, and such an outcome would have unpredictable consequences. That's according to the Austrian Chancellor. This is very true. Completely agree with it. Now let's look onto this from my book where I said Germany has a challenge because they own billions of bonds of the other European nations, including Greece. So they have an incentive to keep them afloat. This is the real intel that we need to look into, where Germany isn't trying to necessarily be nice. This isn't some sort of good Samaritan. They have an incentive. That's very important to note. Now, if I move on to this pie chart here, we can see this out of Der Spiegel. Greek sovereign debt. With a total of 324 billion, you can see that the German share is unbelievably massive at nearly 64 billion. They have a clear incentive in order to continue to prop up this country and the whole system. I'm going to move on to here. You can look at the chart for yourself. Very telling of who owns the debt and how really interconnected they are. Now, I want to show you this here. It's nothing short of astounding that in the 21st century, anyone would think it is in our country's best interest to sit back and let foreign governments dictate our role in a global marketplace. What we're talking about here is the TPP. Very important to note, because as these countries, all of them, in fact, around the world, are encountering worsening economic conditions, we have these partnerships, these pacts, these agreements that are put in place and quite frankly do nothing but make the economy worse. Look at NAFTA as a good example of that. If you deny the fact that NAFTA stole jobs from the West, from, let's just use the example of the US, you can see that the US government specifically gives grants to people who are affected by this. There is a program set up that people have lost their job due to NAFTA. They are given money. So it is official, and the government, in fact, admits it. This is a victory for those with a narrow agenda that puts petty politics ahead of people while jeopardizing the futures of millions of men and women in America. Very clear, very obvious. I'm seeing this happening right now. And quite frankly, it is unimaginable to think of this any other way. Alan Greenspan, you know him, the former Fed chairman, very important man, very smart man, in fact, despite of him joining the Federal Reserve for all those years. We haven't come out of the bottom, Greenspan told CNN. We are in the position now of a secular stagnation. And this secular stagnation has become a buzzword for little to no growth. There will be no growth. There will be no real growth. In fact, they can show it on paper, but the real growth is something out of a dream. We move on to this last article. Now, if you think that the situation isn't getting bad, if you think that, it's all rosy, it's nothing to worry about, look at the stock market. Billionaire Bunkers, exclusive look inside the world's largest planned Doomsday escape. What we're seeing here is individuals, wealthy individuals, who are planning their escape out of countries like the US and like certain ones in Europe that are basically saying, if stuff hits the fan, we're going to get the heck out of here. And they are planning to have all their armored redoubts, and in this case here is sort of a shared facility for a bunch of elite people. Very cool images that you can check out for yourself in here. But essentially what we are seeing is this billionaires and mega millionaires who are getting wise to the situation. They know where it's all headed. Many of them have gone out to Switzerland and New Zealand and everything else, and they've basically fled into the hills in order to prevent what's going to happen for their family. And this is going to show you that it isn't just any individual, it is part of the elite structure that is moving away, and we should use that as a signal to tell us how bad things are getting. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that very much. And last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know that you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. And you can actually look through the book. If you go over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature, and you can flip through the book for yourself. Take care.